Here's a philosophical question. Is the reason why you die simply because you're aware of the concept of death? This is what the Royal Fraternity of Master Metaphysicians wanted to find out in 1939. Was it a faith-based group? Was it a cult? One thing is for certain, they were never going to find the secret of eternal life on Long Island, but that didn't stop them from trying. Founder James B. Schaefer didn't want to define the nature of his strange group to outsiders, but they found themselves in the headlines in November 1939 when they announced plans to adopt a baby and prove that immortality was possible under the right circumstances. The RFMM adopted 5-month-old Jean Gaunt from her parents, who couldn't afford a kid in those financial times. The plan was to raise the child at their headquarters, the 110-room mansion they called Peace Haven. There, she would eat a vegetable diet, and nobody would be allowed to mention death or disease around her. The metaphysicians believed that illness and death were the result of negative thought. Her life, they thought, would test their hypothesis. The experiment lasted for just over a year. What happened? Well, for one thing, Gaunt's mother wanted her child back. For another, the group also realized a little too late just how expensive it was to try and raise an immortal super baby. The metaphysicians returned her to her family, and not too long after that, Schaefer was accused of scamming his followers out of money and sent to prison. He and his wife took their own lives in 1955, which is both tragic and sort of ironic. As for baby Jean, she grew up a normal person and completely retreated from public life. The Epic of Gilgamesh is an ancient Mesopotamian legend surrounding the king of the Sumerian city of Uru. It's generally believed that Gilgamesh reigned between 4,000 and 5,000 years ago, and while he remains a widely debated historical figure, nobody really believes that he battled gods and sea serpents. His story was lost to history for thousands of years until it was rediscovered in 1849 by archaeologist Sir Austin Henry Layard, and it was immediately clear that Gilgamesh was more myth than man. In the epic, Gilgamesh seeks immortality, so he chats up a former king, a very old and immortal man named Utnapishtim, who'd once built a boat and survived a great flood, saving not only himself, but his family and a bunch of animals. Sound familiar? This may remind you of a guy named Noah, the Ark one, from the Bible. It's a very famous story. After the flood, the god Ea granted Utnapishtim eternal life. Utnapishtim reveals to Gilgamesh that he'll be granted immortality if he proves himself to the gods by resisting sleep for 6 days and 7 nights. Coffee wasn't invented until the 15th century, so he fails immediately. Utnapishtim gives him another chance though, telling him about a plant at the bottom of the ocean that can restore his youth. He ties rocks to his feet, goes for a walk, and finds a prickly plant of eternal life. But then he just leaves it laying around while he's going for a swim later and a snake steals it. The lesson from this myth? Don't try to fight death. You'll probably never win. Or another lesson would be, if you find a plant that gives you eternal life, eat it immediately. Humans of many different cultures have searched for immortality. One common method that gets floated for gaining eternal life is consuming a legendary magical elixir. One of the powerful people who thought they should live forever was Qin Shi Huang, China's first emperor. According to legends that date back to about 2,200 years ago, the emperor made a national decree that everyone had to drop everything and seek out the elixir of life for it, and he personally set out on multiple expeditions to join the search. He sent out search parties to find a 1,000-year-old magician, and when they couldn't find the guy, the expedition just decided not to return home and face the consequences of their failure. This was probably a good call out of them. You'll see why in a sec. Meanwhile, Qin Shi Huang was falling victim to local magicians who were feeding him all kinds of things as life-giving drinks, including plenty of mercury, which probably led to his death even quicker. Legends also say that the emperor engaged in plenty of book burning, but only books that distracted people from seeking out alchemical means towards immortality. And alchemists? He buried them alive, but only to test how good they were at alchemy. Presumably, alchemists were just keeping the secret of eternal life to themselves, and burying them alive would prove it. It did not. In case you're wondering where Qin Shi Huang is today, he didn't evade death forever, but tried. He even snuck around between his hundreds of palaces using underground passageways, where evil spirits couldn't see him, because nothing evil lives underground. No one knows exactly how he died, but it was probably the mercury. The story of Elizabeth Bathory, aka the Blood Countess, could have been pulled straight out of nightmares, and maybe it was. The Hungarian noblewoman became one of history's most notorious serial killers after rumors spread about the heinous crimes she had allegedly committed. Today, 400 years after the alleged events, horror fans and history buffs alike wonder if Bathory was really the bloodthirsty monster many claim she was, or if she was just a victim of a far-reaching conspiracy. Locals continued to tell the myth of the Countess Dracula, who they say took somewhere between 100 and 650 lives of the hapless local poor people, with the aid of her royal servants. Bathory allegedly just really liked hurting people, but also believed the blood of virgins would help her maintain her youth. So she would find peasant girls, torture them, then bathe in their blood. After she started to run out of powerless victims, Bathory turned her attention toward the young daughters of the lesser nobility. This culminated in the Hungarian king ordering an investigation into what Bathory was really up to. It's just a coincidence that he owed her a lot of money, and that debt would be canceled upon her arrest. The investigation allegedly revealed countless dead, dying, or injured girls on her property, and even that she was covered in blood when she was discovered, but it's generally believed that she was just eating dinner at the time. 300 people testified about how weird she was, but no actual complaints came from actual witnesses. Bathory and her servants were found guilty. 3 were executed, and Bathory was confined to her castle, and with no easy access to the rejuvenating blood of the innocents, died a few years later. The actual stories of her bathing in blood didn't show up for another 100 years or so. The interest in gold as an elixir of life spans all the way back to the 25th century BC. Since a pure element doesn't corrode or rust, it followed basic ancient medical logic that it would do the same for the human body. So people started to eat it under the impression it would add years to their life. A significant development occurred when a 9th century alchemist discovered a way to dissolve gold into smooth, drinkable gold chloride, also known as royal water. Chemists followed that logic for hundreds of years and heralded gold chloride as the elixir that everyone had been searching for. The only thing that liquid gold succeeded in doing was giving everyone kidney damage, chronic urination, and making a sweaty mess. That's not to say that gold doesn't have legitimate medical usage. It's being explored for the treatment of forms of arthritis, and its antioxidant qualities have made it popular among anti-aging skincare treatments. Edible gold has even become part of extravagant dining experiences in very small amounts, but you're going to be disappointed and probably pretty sick if you think guzzling Goldschlager will grant you immortality. Now, not all attempts at immortality come from antiquated or debunked science. Modern pseudoscientists know that for the newest medical ideas, all you have to do is turn to comic books. In 2013, an unnamed 35-year-old Russian college professor seemingly did just that. According to RIA Novosti, Russian police brought in the college professor for questioning after the authorities discovered about 30 pounds of radioactive material in his possession. The professor explained that it wasn't to do anything destructive or dangerous, he just wanted to help his friend live forever. To those ends, they'd acquired the radioactive material from locations they call special places and burial sites. Those included the restricted Chernobyl exclusion zone, not known for making people healthier. A criminal case was opened against the professor for the storing of the radioactive material in his home with a potential prison sentence of 7 years. And that's where the story seems to end, Russian news dropping the story after the initial arrest. The Russian quest for immortality doesn't end with radioactive waste. Enterprising Russian scientists have also experimented with undying bacteria. Anatoly Brushkov, a researcher at Moscow State University, decided to skip all the steps of normal science and just inject himself with some cool junk that was found in the dirt. In 2009, researchers made a major discovery at a Siberian permafrost site in the Saha Republic, where they found a 3.5 million-year-old bacteria they called Bacillus F. Somehow, it had managed to survive in incredibly harsh conditions for a very long time. Naturally, scientists were interested in the bacteria's secrets, so they conducted experiments on plants and animal cells to see what would happen. Results were promising. Crops experienced more resistance to frost and grew faster, and mice remained fertile for much longer. It's even assumed that people from the region where the Bacillus F was discovered live longer because the bacteria may be in their water supply. Still, there's a lot of guessing going on, so Brushkov took it all one step further. He injected himself with Bacillus F. He told Motherboard, "It's not real science, I was just curious." In 2019, he noticed a positive effect on his life since a bacteria entered his body, saying that he never got sick anymore and he was able to work for longer periods of time. Brushkov is convinced that the answer to eternal life could lie in Bacillus F. There have been no published results about this informal experiment in quite a few years. Reports are that Brushkov is still kicking it though. We'll keep you posted on that. If it works for that old pork loin in the back of your freezer, why wouldn't it work for you? It's a billion-dollar question. Can frozen humans be revived? While this might seem like a ridiculous sci-fi scenario that Hollywood screenwriters return to over and over, cryonics isn't exactly something new.
Hello? Pizza delivery for, icy wiener? Oh, crud.
Founded in 1972, the Alcor Life Extension Foundation is one of the organizations leading the charge in cryonics, or in basic terms, halting the process of dying by freezing the human body until it can be cured by future medical technology. Problem is that we don't even have the freezing a body part down yet. That hasn't stopped hundreds of people from entering the deep freeze with hopes for the future.
Cryonics. It was a kind of fad in the late 20th century. People feared dying. It terrified them.
No human being has been successfully reanimated to date, but the technology continues to develop at a rapid pace. In 2016, an MIT grad froze and revived the brain of a rabbit. We hope that life-changing advancements may not be too far off. But even if cryonics someday succeeds in reviving a human, there are ethical questions to consider. What happens when you wake up in a world completely unlike the one you went to sleep in? Heinrich Himmler's role in the Holocaust is undeniable, but his goals didn't stop at just genocide. In his sinister quest to secure the future of the Aryan race he envisioned, he developed an obsession with replacing Christianity with his own occult ideologies. He still believed in a higher power, but it was a power that suited his own homicidal motives. Despite that, Himmler and Adolf Hitler still believed in the Holy Grail and how it supposedly had healing powers or eternal life. Himmler believed the Grail to be a great source of power and possible eternal life, so he headed off on a mission to find and claim it as a symbol for the Aryan faith in 1940. He was so convinced that he'd find it that he set aside a room for it in his castle. He thought it could be found at a monastery in Montserrat, because that kind of sounded like Montsalvat, an imaginary place in an opera he liked. It wasn't there. Himmler's inability to distinguish fantasy from reality didn't stop there, though. He also believed that Thor's hammer actually existed and needed it for his collection. He thought it was a weapon designed by his forefathers and wanted to use its powers in the Third Reich. He gave orders for his personal division of pseudoscientists to find the hammer by exploring anywhere remotely Nordic where lightning bolts and thrown hammers were used in art or literature. He didn't think it was magic, though. That would be silly. He thought it was ancient technology created by super smart gods, possibly from Atlantis, and he deserved to have it. What a nerd.